Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side, so raise your glass. I'm Adam Minahan, sitting with David Niles, and we have a special guest back with us. We actually recorded an episode of the Catholic Man Show about a year and a couple months ago with Jamie Baxter. Jamie, it's great to have you on the Catholic Man Show again.
Adam, Dave, great to be with you. Thanks for the invite. I feel like lots happened in the last year and a half. And I remember our first recording together at the Freedom Summit with fondness. I just remember feeling like so peaceful that day. It's like, oh man, this is great. And so anyway, great to be back with you guys and with your listeners as well. It's a real privilege. Thank you.
It was probably also one of the coolest titles of the show that we've ever done. It's like the Contemplative CEO. I think is what it was. It was just like, that's a pretty cool title. Like if I was the CEO, that's what I would want. That's a pretty cool title.
Well, aspiring contemplative. How about that?
Yeah.
Never quite there, and never where you want to be. But
you were also probably feeling relaxed because it was the last day of the Freedom Summit. It's like,
it was done.
Like, there, we did it.
Yeah.
Pulled it off.
It pulled it off beautifully. It was such a powerful couple days, and you guys were a huge help to making that happen on the recording side. So yeah, thanks again for all that. And obviously, since then, Adam's been on the team, which has been such a blessing to me and to all of us here. So, come a long way. Actually, it was right after that interview, Adam. Do you remember this? You pulled me aside and you're like, hey man, I really feel like we should work together. God's calling me here. I'm like, okay, all right. Let me discern that and see what we can do. So, and I'm glad you did, Adam. So,
yeah, that was like a super God moment because I was not like planning on doing that. And I remember pulling you aside and I just said like, hey, Jamie, I really feel like that we could work together, but I only want what's best for Exodus 90. So if you don't want it, no hard feelings, but let me help in some capacity. And then you're like, okay, cool. And I was like, all right, man. Hey, I just want to let you know, I'm praying for you. Yeah. And like, it was like a very, like, I remember like looking at you to be like very sincerely, hey man, I'm just letting you know, I'm praying for you. And like, you received that really well. And I was like, I walked away and I felt completely at peace with it. I remember afterwards, Dave, you and I walked out of there and we were walking back to our room. And I was like, Dave, I'm just like completely at peace with what just happened. You remember that, Dave?
Yeah, I do. And I remember seeing you guys like pull off to the side, and I was like, oh, I wonder what they're doing.
What's going on over there?
I feel like I should walk away.
Dude, so Dave, you know this through friendship, but on the work side, I mean, like, man, Adam is the jack of all trades. I mean, talk about a guy who just rolls up his sleeves and gets it done. It's so incredible. I mean, he basically does the job of 10 people, is kind of how I think about it. And, it's cool. We talk about this, internally now. It's like, obviously we do a lot of like white collar work, but we try to do it in a really blue collar way. And, like even with Dr. Jared Stout, who's our theologian, he's from, blue collar family, and he's, when we were kind of like searching for that, that person in our company, I was talking to a friend named Jason Craig, who you know well, obviously. And he's like, the best thing about Jared is like, he's the only intellectual worker who treats it blue collar. So he can just get it done. And I look at Adam in the same way, from a marketing leadership side. So anyway, yeah, man, so grateful. And we wouldn't be able to be doing what we're doing, without you, man. So grateful for you and for all the listeners out there. Just want to dish that affirmation, on Adam. So yeah, man.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. So speaking of which, obviously we're approaching Exodus 90, right? Next week, Exodus 90 is the launch date, right? One of the biggest days for us as a company. So a question that I have for you, Jamie, and this is something that I actually want to get our whole team to do, and then we'll write a blog about it. But is the beautiful thing about Exodus 90 is that because you say no to, the whole point of Exodus 90, you say no to lesser goods so you can say yes to greater goods, right? You can orient yourself towards the divine. You can order yourself towards your vocation, towards your wife, towards your children. You make yourself more available to them, right? You're more present to them, but you're also more present, obviously, in prayer, and you have obviously more time from an for your intellectual life, kind of the whole person, right? And so I'm curious, do you have a book that you're like planning on reading during Exodus 90? Do you have I would like to get like everybody's book that they're planning on reading during Exodus 90 and then putting it together so that way everybody else can see what we're reading. Like, do you have a book already planned out?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I mean, so I have a couple in mind that I was thinking about towards the beginning of the year. But for us, things don't really kind of settle in and slow down until until start happens. So my wife and I have talked about having kind of a year of C.S. Lewis, so kind of reading C.S. Lewis out loud together. With the kids, she got me for Christmas The Magician's Nephew and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I've started reading those out loud to the kids, and it's going okay. I got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old picks up on the colors, so at the beginning of Magician's Nephew, there's a yellow ring and a green ring, and it's yellow, green. I'm like, yeah, but yeah. So I'd say that's kind of in the probably something we'll carry into to Exodus 90 this year. But it's such a good. I love that observation, and I think I don't know when you look at Exodus from the outside, especially if you haven't made the journey before, it can be like, oh man, there's all this stuff. How am I going to have all time for all these things? And we do make additions to our schedules, right? And the commitment to prayer. We try to pray for an hour a day. When we can't get that in, and maybe perhaps there's days where that's not possible. At least 20 minutes of silence, with the Lord. We try to exercise. We make room for fraternity meeting, all that stuff. It can feel like I don't have time for any of that stuff. But then it's like, when you reorient your priorities a little bit, you find you have more time than maybe you thought. When you look at stats of average users on things like YouTube, and it's like so depressing. I mean, it's insane. So anyway, it's just like, we find a lot of time. And so I just, to be honest with you, I don't talk about this very much, but Exodus nighttime is my favorite time every year by far. Everything slows down. Everything is much quieter. And part of it's the winter, it's the seasons, things are dead outside. And by the end, you're awakening with spring into the resurrection. But we're post Thanksgiving, post Christmas octave, and it's a new year, but it starts in some of the silence of winter, that kind of the dead of the night. And I think it's just such a perfect time to go to the desert, and it's my favorite time in the entire year by far. So, but what about you? What do you guys think about reading?
Well, I do want to comment on some of the books that you've got, like The Magician's Nephew. Yeah, I think when people ask this question, what book are you going to be reading? I think immediately their mind goes to, well, obviously it has to be something like, Introduction to the Devout Life, or, like some spiritual classic, and fantastic books to read, especially, but The Magician's Nephew, I love that book. It's so good. Of all the books I've read, that book made me ponder the creation story more than any other. I don't, have you read it before? I don't want to
So to be honest with you,
talk about
Dave,
it too
not to
much.
disappoint, but I read it in a book club. Okay, this might
So
be
you
too
have
much.
read.
This might be
You've
too
read.
much information, but it was in the 4th grade, and it was before school. And the only reason I went was because they had these really nice bagels and cream cheese, and Mrs. McGriff. I got invited. All right, like it was like this subculture of 4th grade reading Magician's Nephew. I don't remember a lick about the book. Okay, so I don't remember anything.
So Aslan, just like the creation story, he sings Narnia into creation, and he creates these animals. And then there's this line where Aslan looks at all of the animals, and he says to the animals, "I give you yourselves."
Mm.
That was his gift to them. this, he's basically giving them personhood, and like there's just so many. The way C.S. Lewis takes some of the profound truths in the actual creation story and makes them, I think accessible on just a different level. And I tend to view myself as I'm pretty much a child when it comes to literary things. I have no illusions about my grandiose, like, oh, it's like this is really a metaphor for, the struggle of modern time. It's like I don't get any of that when I read something. So that was just a really beautiful book that I got a lot out of spiritually.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing. I can't
I
wait
hope you
to
enjoy it.
to
And I
see it
think your
through.
kids will.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What are you
Man,
going to read, Dave?
I have not decided on a book to journey, but I have a stack of books over there
Right.
that I read from all the time.
Yeah.
But I do
Be
like to do
intentional.
that.
Yeah.
90 days is a long time. I'll probably come Lent. One of the things about Exodus 90 is then Lent comes, and I find like, okay, well now I want to like do something. So that's typically what I do is once Lent comes, I'll add like that way I still feel like I'm doing something. Like I have something new that is like in my mind honoring the season, even though obviously Exodus 90 is what I'm doing for, if we're talking about what we're doing for Lent, that's what I'm doing. But that's probably what I'll do with the book.
Well, you're also, Dave and I were a part of a great books group that we meet. And this Lent, we're going to read The Inferno,
Oh, wow.
which will be really good.
Right. I'm excited about that.
Which I'm really excited about. We did that 4 years ago, maybe.
Man, it was a ways back.
And it was the first time I read Dante. And I remember Dave and I, we'd drive there, we'd talk about it. We'd be driving back, and David and I were like, I don't know, man. I feel like that they're giving Dante way too much credit here.
The beginning, we're with this group of academics, and we're still in this book group, and it's incredible. Just the men that we're with. I'm totally like bottom of the totem pole. Like I'm the guy who's making sarcastic, funny remarks in the middle of like a serious conversation. But they were like, oh, yeah, man, I really feel like Dante is trying to say this. And yeah, like Adam said, I felt like you guys are giving him a lot of credit. Like, I'm not really.
I hope you're as charitable to me as you are to Dante here.
Yeah. But by the end of the book, I was totally, it's blown away. Like, no, actually, he is trying to say all these things. I just didn't realize like Dante was a genius. And
I've read it probably 4 or 5 times since that book club. And so every time I read it, it's just more mind blowing, more just the depths of it.
That's incredible, Adam. Good for you, man. I need to get with it. I've got it over here on my shelf, and it's a poverty in my own exploration of the intellectual tradition. I haven't taken it down. I haven't climbed the mountain.
It's tough to do by yourself. But so
it really is something that you should do together, especially with somebody who has read it before, because there is a lot of context. And if you get a good edition, then the notes will provide that for you, but you just have to read them and take it real slow.
So the other book that I'm going to be reading is this book right here. I've been starting it. I've started it for a while, but it's I put it down. You know how that goes. But it's the Restoration of Realism. It's John Senior and the Restoration of Realism. It's by Father Francis Bethel, who's a monk at Clear Creek Abbey, and so he basically wrote the biography of John Senior. Who John Senior we've talked about on the show ad nauseum almost. It seems like almost every episode at some point we talk about John Senior. But I'm reading his biography, and the beginning of it is absolutely wild, guys. I don't know, like he's 13 years old, runs away from home, to go be a cowboy in Montana, to a totally different state.
Hmm.
And obviously back then, there's no cell phones. There's no like, oh, let me just go call somebody. And so their parents had to like go and try to find where he was and figure out, oh, he ran away to go be a cowboy in Montana or Wyoming. I can't remember, but either way, yeah, they go and try to find him. They find him, and in order to get him back home, they convince him. They say, okay, we'll let you come here every summer to work as a ranch hand if you come back home. And he said, okay. He's like 13 years old. Like Luke is, 11, like, I could not imagine that happening. Anyway, he has a wild story and a total like life of grace that happened to him. Because he fell into the occult for a while, and I mean he was, far off the beaten path.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we read on our honeymoon. We read The Restoration of Christian Culture, and that was such a good read. It's such a great read for a honeymoon, if I may say so. And no, but it was really cool. Just like great discussions at going to meals and stuff. We were so fortunate. Our honeymoon was great. We went to to France. We were in Paris, so we were in the city. Then we went to Provence, went to the country, and then we went to Nice, to the beach, basically. And for a little bit of time in each of those places, and just made for like great discussions, in the early days of our marriage. And yeah, what kind of family
I
do we
can
want
just
to
see it. You
raise?
guys are
What are
reading
our
this book
principles?
together.
What are our values? Yeah.
And then
So.
you decide, like, how do we restore the culture? We have to start a family.
Let's
get this baby train going.
Somebody make a movie about it.
And also, we got to get rid of the TV.
Yeah. We held off on actually a TV for a long time. And in our apartments when we were dating, didn't have a TV. I remember actually somebody came over to my house, and they were I didn't know them. They were friends of a friend. They were just stopping by through town, and they were like, "Well, where's your television?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't have one of those." And he was just like, "What? You don't have a television? How do you live? But eventually, so yeah, it's a slippery slope because we got one. And I must confess, a lot of it's me. It's like, just with the Colts, I was just tired of pulling out my laptop, and I kind of have this thing for the Colts. It's quite the ascetic practice, actually, to root for the Indianapolis Colts right now. They just fill you with hope, and then just crush your dreams in the last week. I mean, been flirting with the playoffs for years, anyway.
Welcome to being an Oklahoma State fan.
Yeah, I was gonna say Adam and I are both Oklahoma State Cowboys fans, so
we know that train very well. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not saying I'm better for the TV, but it is what it is.
So, Jamie, let me ask you this, because there are like several things after doing Exodus, a number of times that are just different about me. So, for instance, before I did Exodus, literally, I wondered how people could take a shower in less than 10 minutes. And like, I really thought, like, you just kind of can't. It's like a law of physics. There's like a barrier that stops you from doing it any faster than 10 minutes. And then obviously, like the first time I did Exodus, I realized like that barrier is psychological. That is not a real barrier. Because it's like I found I can shower very fast, actually. And so then afterwards, even when I was taking hot showers, I just don't take a long shower anymore, right? I don't know why. Even I just don't. So for you, because you've done Exodus more than I have, several more times, what do you find is different about you afterwards? Like long-term habits?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I go through Exodus almost every year, and just to stay really current with it, with local groups, sometimes with remote groups, friends, or people I look up to that are interested in it, all that kind of stuff. And every experience is different. Everyone, has a kind of character to it. Different ups and downs, different graces, different struggles. I think after a while, like there's just so to be clear, I'm not for, just being on Exodus all the time. It's like we really all of our work has been really orients men to the calendar, the liturgical calendar, and living in these cycles of fasting and feasting offered to us by the church. And and so it's again, we fast, in order to feast, right? So I don't know. I'd like to just say that at the front, because sometimes you think like, oh, we just do Exodus all the time. It's like, no, we don't,
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, but I think after a while, it really does, like, it becomes less of a, okay, we're starting up again, I got to get it together. And it's more just like, they just become very much a part of your life. So, yeah, I think for me, I mean, and I'm not saying, there aren't things to tighten up, but like, um, I'm trying to think, like technology, for example, like I, I don't do, I'm not on a lot of the things that are struggles for most people today, YouTube, sports stuff. I really, when I think about my smartphone, I like to, this is what I'm not, what I tell myself is I try to not get into games I can't win. And it's like, I'm not going to do well with just these constant social interactions on my phone. So it's like, I'm not going to do that. Or like, I like the Colts way too much to have anything related to the Colts on my phone. So, I'd say it becomes a lot less like this intense thing, and a lot more a part of your life over time, and that has has a profound, I think, gift to it. So I think though last year was like I can really think most currently. So last year was really special. I was in this group um, with my brother, and then we were in a remote group with Father Boniface Hicks, who's our spiritual guide again this year, and another ministry leader. His name is Jason Jensen. He started Glass Canvas. He's out in Vancouver, and they're building a software platform for the church right now called Tilma. And both of those, all those men, I admire so much. They have so many gifts and charisms that I don't have, and it was just such a rich, real, fraternity experience. But I think in particular, Father Boniface was my anchor. And if you know any,
What an
if
anchor.
yeah, and it was incredible. Like it was just such a gift. I mean, he's someone that I had read for years and looked up to and admired, and I was like, all of a sudden we were in a fraternity together, and the experience was like so helpful to him and so many monks in the monastery too, which was so humbling to hear and surprising for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, the guy is what you would hope him to be. Just such a good example of, I think, what manhood really is about. Such a good example of honesty, vulnerability, accountability, um, and yeah, it's a formation of such a close friendship. And so, I remember every day just being so attentive to different things that would happen, different stirrings in my heart, some good, some not good, whatever. I mean, it's life. And it's just so honest with Father Boniface about it. And that friendship has brought about so much healing and transformation for me. And so anyway, every year is different, but last year it was that friendship that really made it something special. Yeah. What would
Yeah.
you say, Adam? I mean, you've been through the journey, many times
Oh
now.
man. Okay, so the first time I did Exodus 90, I remember thinking I was like a dog who bites the chew toy and just like clenches down, and I'm just like, the owner's just slinging the chew toy around, and you're just like trying to hold on the whole time. The whole, like, the first time I felt like I was just trying to do it, right? And at the end, it did form me from a natural perspective and discipline perspective, right? But I think really where the fruit comes, and this is very, this makes total sense from a Catholic perspective, also, right? Because grace perfects grace perfects nature, right? So it formed me from a natural perspective to have a more ordered and disciplined life. To where the second time I did Exodus 90 is where I really saw a lot of the fruit, because I didn't feel like I was like just clenching down, bearing down, just trying to do Exodus 90, and I was entering into this beautiful relationship with our Lord, to where I was just being able to allow myself to just be present in front of Him.
Yeah.
And so the first time I felt like it's like good. I remember actually, Davey, you're like, because we already had a like little men's group going. We decided we were all going to do Exodus 90. I did it the first time with everybody because actually I think Dave is the one who said like, hey, this is what we should do Exodus 90 together. And I was like reading through the disciplines. I'm like, I don't know, this looks kind of tough. And Dave was like, no, let's all do it together. And it's obviously because Dave brought it up and challenged us to do it, the whole group, that I said, okay, let's do it. And I remember at the end of the first Exodus 90, I said, I'm so glad I did it. I'm never doing it again.
That's what I
Like,
said. I said, good.
good.
I'm never doing it again.
I'm never doing that again. And then, like, again, grace perfects nature, right? And so, like, because it gave me this more ordered, natural, spiritual time in my life, that I had an ordered prayer life, I feel like that our Lord was able to plant, more seeds and give me more grace, to where I realized the beauty of this adventure of walking alongside our Lord. And so by the time the next Exodus 90 came around, I was like, guys, we got to do Exodus 90 again. Like, this is something we have to do again. And it was immediately, everybody said, yeah, let's do it again. So like,
Yeah.
I agree with you, Jamie, that each year there's a different grace or different perspective that our Lord kind of shows that I wasn't prepared for, I wasn't ready for. But I think, like, I'm just incredibly grateful for being able to have that order at the very beginning of the first Exodus 90, to where there was order that needed to be taken place that I didn't even know needed order.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I didn't know what I didn't even know. You know what I mean? So it opened these doors and kind of illuminated some of the things that I was maybe hiding, not intentionally, but maybe subconsciously, from everything else, from myself, from the Lord, from, just my family, my friends, like, that I would not have been able to experience unless I went through it.
Yeah.
And so that's one definite thing that I give that back, because it changed the way my whole life, my whole spiritual life has taken place.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dave, what about you? Does that ring?
I mean, so the first thing is, Exodus 90 was really what taught me to pray. And I've talked about this many times on the show, but I've been a faithful Catholic for many years. I stopped practicing my faith in college, but I was back before it's not like Exodus 90 brought me back. So I had a prayer life. I said these prayers in the morning, I said a rosary every day, and I prayed with my wife. Like, I was disciplined about it. But so I remember the first day of Exodus 90, where I'm like kneeling at my pray do, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to be just quiet for 20 minutes. And I remember that moment of like going, okay, and thinking like, this is a little scary, like, this might take a while. I'm just gonna sit here for 20 minutes. But it was like within just a few days, I realized that this is a huge thing I was missing, that I was saying a lot of prayers, but I didn't actually have a relationship with Christ. I was doing all the talking. So, that was just absolutely, I mean, it totally changed my life. I mean, it just absolutely did. So that's the biggest and most important thing that Exodus did for me. The other thing, though, is that I have come to realize on some level that I don't want to go to heaven. If you know it, don't misunderstand what I mean. What I'm saying is that if left to my nature and my appetites to make decisions, what I want is to be fat and lazy and drunk. Okay, that's what I want. I mean, if you just if I don't take a very active role in um, governing my own desires and self mastery through discipline, through things like fasting, then I will I really think that I would come to a place where my appetites were so in charge that I actually wouldn't want to go to heaven. I really think that I could that if left to the passion my own passions, I really would get there where I would say I don't even want to go to heaven. All I want is to keep feeding these things that are satisfying me in this moment. And um you just turn more and more into an animal, right? Um and so the self mastery is the most human thing that we can pursue, because it is where all of a sudden we're using our intellect and we're using these God-given powers of our reason to order ourselves towards higher goods other than this world, which the animals don't have, right? They only have the goods of this world. So um, it's programs and decisions like doing Exodus that teach me to want the right things, that orient my wants towards the goods, towards the highest goods anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's so cool. I mean, it's like go down the line, it's like we all had something really different to say. And I think for me, that's been what's been so humbling over the last 10 years now is just you talk to like everybody's got a different experience. I think like a straw man of our work can be like, oh, it's like just like conformist and it's like this uniform list of things. But it's like, well, when you take them seriously, you have so much time and your prayer time is so different from every other man. Your day is different from every other man, your family. And so it's like the blessings that reverberate are just unbelievable. I mean, it's like, I mean, guys coming back to the faith happens, vocations are answered every year. I mean, I had a vocations director not too long ago call me up and be like, yeah, Exodus 90 is kind of my filter for like, are these guys ready for more, more serious formation? And to be honest with you, every single one of my seminarians is an Exodus man. And I was like, wow, that's incredible, but it's just different. I mean, for some guys, you're right, Adam, it's like, it is this awakening to like God is alive. Like he moves, he speaks, he inspires. I mean, when we go before him and, we allow him to press himself upon our bodies, minds, and souls, it changes us, and, like when we go into prayer, we leave differently and we should have and different thoughts. We should change our course sometimes because it's actually like, honestly, the Lord has something different in mind for us. Adam, think about how many times in the last year and a half where it's like, all right, we're going to do this thing. Like, let's pray about it. And we're like, now we're not going to do this thing, whatever. But that's true, for everyone. And for other guys, yeah, the discipline, right? It's like asceticism, is training. And in a Catholic vision, it's not the end. It's not the goal. You don't do hard things to do hard things. It's a training, for love, and freedom should always manifest itself in love, in a Catholic vision. And for others, it's just like they're so lonely. I was just looking at some fresh research today, and just on the state of men, kind of from a sociological standpoint. 15% of men today say they don't have a friend. But when you ask more casually, like, does anybody know you? 2/3 of men say no one knows them, which is just like so sad to hear, right? And I think about that, especially with you guys, and your friendship, which is such a model, I think, for all your listeners. a lot of the guys don't have, a lot of men today don't have that. And Exodus 90 fraternities can be a glimpse, of masculine friendships in Christ, which, and that can just be such a life-changing thing. So anyway, I just,
Jamie, why do you think that
yeah.
is? Like, why do you think 2/3 of men say that nobody really knows me?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like, I know you're not a sociologist, but
I'm not, but
what do you what do you think it is?
yeah, I think part of it is just like, part of it's just the challenge of technology, and we live in this age of the machine right now. That's a word I'm borrowing from fancy authors, smarter than me, and it's tough. It's like there's such gifts that have come, but I think as it relates to like the social promises, of technology on the internet, um, a lot of the time it fails to fulfill what it promises, and it's like maybe touches in a small way some of these desires to be known, but doesn't fulfill them. Um, that's what I think, in part
Mhm.
makes Exodus 90 so powerful. It's like these are local groups, 4 to 6 men all over the world.
Mhm.
It's not an, we use a lot of tech to do what we do, but it's from a kind of incarnational, first principle. So I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it, especially for married men, is like, man, I mean, we're all, husbands and fathers. We all have young kids, and it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to like. It's a lot of responsibility. I mean, it's a vocation. It's an identity, and um, you're pouring yourself out for your family. You're going to work and you're doing it over and over and over again. And sometimes it's like, are you stopping to really like spend other time, with others, and are you making that time for your spouse as well to make sure she has that time, with other women, going through similar struggles as she is. Um, and I think when we don't carve out that time for each other in our marriages, it can lead to just some isolation for sure. So I think that's part of it. But those are just a couple of thoughts. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all have this desire to be loved, right? We all want to be wanted, and so for 2/3 of the men to say that they don't think anybody knows them, it's kind of hard. I mean, it's heartbreaking, first of all, because how like that you see where, oh, obviously that's loneliness, depression, anxiety, all these things can kind of build up from that. Not having your brother to lean on, not having somebody to talk to. Um, and I think that those things have a vicious cycle in and themselves where you just keep going down. You can start that way, and that seed is planted, and then it just like I mean, it goes, it takes off. And then your thought process of it is greater than the reality. Like you think that to me, I think the devil has like two games, right? It's divide and conquer,
Yeah.
and then say like to that division of man, say you're the only one that's struggling with this. You're the only one who isn't being seen, who isn't being loved. Look at everybody else. Everybody else is loved, but you are unknown.
You are defective.
You are Yeah, you are just unlovable. And
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that plays a huge, huge role.
Adam, I was going to say the same thing. I think the devil preys on that loneliness, and that it just compounds into all kinds of sins, which are not uncommon at all. Be that pornography, or be that just coveting, our neighbors, this, that, or the other, or just struggles with careerism, whatever it is. It's like it's all. I think it can all be kind of like medicating, some of that isolation. Yeah, so on this idea of being known, it reminds me, I saw um, this picture of a founder. I didn't know him, and it was like a secular company, but it was two pictures of him, uh, less than 24 hours apart. And on one side, he was winning this award for like whatever, Forbes 30 under 30 or something, some big fancy secular award. And the other picture of him was him breaking down on his knees, completely stressed by just the life of a founder. And I was just like, I just saw that. And I was like, man, that is sad. It's like, does anyone know you to support you, to encourage you, to help you keep everything in perspective? I know that, and when I look at my own journey, um, I have been so fortunate, one, to have the example of my father and my mother, um, but I've always had fraternities, would be they in high school, um, or in the seminary, and afterwards now with all the Exodus groups through the years. I just can't even imagine. I can't even imagine life without it. I don't know about you guys, but when I leave my fraternity meeting, we meet on Friday mornings. Okay, this is a funny story. So we go to this coffee shop called Zing, and it opens up at 7 a.m. And there's these. It's our Exodus group, 4 of us, and there's like 10 guys all over the age of 80, and they're like sipping their coffee, talking about the economy, talking politics, and we're just, and they all come with coins to pay for their coffee to the penny. Okay, to the penny. I mean, you can't make it up. I mean, it is just so inspiring. And so anyway, we have a good laugh. We leave, but you know, we leave every week, and I'm like, man, I'm just so glad this place exists. Like, it's such a sacred space, and every week's different. Sometimes there's a lot to say, other times there's nothing to say. But I can't imagine where I would be without other guys like me, just on the road, doing the best they can, being open, being honest, being vulnerable. So it's so important.
Jamie, I want to ask you to you touched on this, but I want to kind of double click on it and get your thoughts, because X90 a lot of times has, and we can talk about other things besides X90 here in a little bit. But I do have this question for you: is that X90 has sometimes been pigeonholed falsely of being like the Christian Stoicism, that like this is like something for men to just do hard things and lift big weights and all this, like these things that, because this is part of it, is there is disciplines, right? But what is the difference between X90 and the crazy popular stoic type of podcasts and influencers who are really gathering up a lot of men, like having a big following? Like, men are flocking to these stoic influencers. Like, what separates us between X90 and Stoicism?
And like, are you trying to like say, are we just a Catholic David Goggins?
Right,
Is
exactly.
that basically your question?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Adam. And I think, me, I'm not one to go negative. I try to stay pretty positive and optimistic. So I think there's so much to affirm, and in Stoicism, honestly, and even in its benefits for men. Like, I know guys who are so far, I mean, we're so far from truth and any kind of order or like just intentional living, that where Stoicism was helpful to them. And so I don't know. I want to affirm that they're obviously fulfilling, something. But I would just say, in a Catholic vision, it's just that it doesn't fulfill, what it promises to be. I'd also, as a philosopher by background, ancient philosophy is some of my favorite. That's actually where I got onto coffee. I had an 8 a.m. ancient philosophy class when I was 19 years old. And anyway, loved journeying with these primary sources, many, many years ago. But I think what I would say to the objection is that I just think it's a straw man. I don't think it really pays any attention to the reality of the work or the teaching that we do at Exodus 90, because Stoicism is kind of the inversion of Christian asceticism. Because a stoic, it's all about this, like, it's kind of a hyper self-control, and it's like high on self-management and regulation, and then almost a kind of a calm and mastery that's I would say detached from reality. And asceticism is so different from that, because whereas I think Stoicism bends, really, becomes very self-referential and like self-improvement based. Christian asceticism is completely different. Again, yeah, we've said this before, but asceticism is a training. And when you look at the tradition, you look at the Desert Fathers, especially when you look at, so many of the great founders in the church, you see this voluntary asceticism, which all of them take on. And it's like, well, why? Asceticism is a means to a much greater end, which is union with God, which is to say it's about, growing in the love of God and the love of neighbor. And so, we don't do hard things to do hard things. We don't do hard things to become these, um, whatever macho people. It's like, no, asceticism breaks us down. It humbles us. It opens us to greater dependence upon grace, and should manifest itself, in greater charity. And I think when asceticism isn't doing that, well, I think there's an issue, that's worthy of examination. So that's what I would say. I also think with our series on the Desert Fathers that's come out this year, we're gonna be taking it at the Stoics, on the nose all year long, and that's a battle that's worth fighting. I'd say the other thing too on the David Goggins thing is like, yeah, you've clearly never seen me. I'm the lankiest person you've ever met. I can't bench 100 pounds, and I'm working on that. All right, I really am, but it's just like, if that's what you're hoping for this to be, it's like you're going to be really disappointed. Now, it's not to say, we do have men in the military, so many veterans, guys in active service who really resonate with the spirituality of Exodus for great reasons. But I would ultimately say that figures like David Goggins, I think in particular, it's, yeah, like there are partial truths, that can be helpful to many. Um, very far from the fullness of the truth we receive, from the church.
Yeah, I suspect that caricature of Exodus 90 comes about because honestly, those like the the difficulty of the program actually does resonate with a lot of men. And like you said, that's okay because just think about how many men this describes. You wake up in your soft bed in the morning in your air conditioned house. You get in your car, which is air conditioned, and drive to the office where you sit in a nice chair in an air conditioned room all day. And then you come home and like at the end of the week, the hardest thing you did was mow the lawn. Right. And there's just a part of your masculinity that is just, it's like you just know, it's like, look, I was made like to do something. Like, why do I have all this strength?
Yeah.
If I'm not doing anything with it, and that is not the purpose of Exodus 90 is, to just prove to yourself that you're man enough to get through 90 days of like some grueling program. That's not it at all. But I do think that does resonate with a lot of people.
Oh,
And
totally. Men want to be challenged so much, right? And we've tried this. We've tried this experiment for decades of kind of what do they say? Like a dispensation culture to Catholicism. And it just has not resonated at all. And so obviously we've seen, more recently, I think standards being raised. And what I was taught growing up was, you ask for little, you get little. Ask for a lot, you get a lot. And that standard really matters. And it's not about being perfect, but it is about, what is being asked. And men so deeply want to be challenged. And I think the other thing I'd just say is, I'm a philosopher and theologian by background. And so a generalist. And, as a, as someone that is that way, it can almost be like it's kind of the embarrassment that comes from being really particular. Like, but it's like every man asks that question. It's like, okay, great. There's all these things we can read, but like, what do I go do? And we're like really concrete. It's like, okay, here's a couple of things you can do and let us know how it goes. And, I will say like, there's some embarrassment that comes with being particular. The particular is embarrassing. But it's like, it's been stunningly helpful to just be really concrete. And most men today are just looking for that kind of direction. They're really tired of vague platitudes, and they're really tired of mantras that mean nothing. It's just like, what do I do? What do I do? And for many, the Exodus has resonated. We're happy to support them.
Jamie, I
Dave-
don't know if you have noticed this, but I have seen this happen a number of times. I can think of 3 times where we've had a guy either in one of our Exodus fraternities or in like another one, like a neighboring rival Exodus fraternity, where they've had one gentleman who says, all right, I'll do it if I don't have to take cold showers. Like this is they come to,
the
they say,
negotiation
fine,
table and say like,
yeah, I'll do it if I don't have to take cold showers. And, they say like, okay, because I will say to someone, look, if that's what it comes down to, fine. Like if I'm leading the group, I'll say, okay, fine. Don't take cold showers. Do it with us anyway. Like we want you to do it. If I can get you praying every day for an hour, whether you take cold showers or not, that's a big win. I have noticed though, the people who say I won't take cold showers very rarely are in the fraternity on day 90.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, Dave.
Or they end up taking cold showers.
Yeah, they end up saying, I'm not going to do the cold showers. And you're like, fine, come on. Just make sure let's do everything else. And then like week 2's meeting, they're like, okay, so I've started taking cold showers.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
So yeah, it's a good question. I think every group is different, and we see different things that are helpful, but I don't know. What I like to say is like, hey, there's no such thing as a perfect journey. No one does this perfectly. Like that's not the point. It's not about building streaks
I don't know,
or
David.
whatever.
I think actually I'm getting close. In fact, I was telling Adam, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to get the 90 days done in probably like 84, 85 days.
84, 85. Maybe
I think
so.
I'm actually going to come in a little under the 90-day mark. So we'll see. We'll see. I've got a lot of pride and optimism in my own.
Yeah. Well, but the other
journey.
thing too is like just building into disciplines is like fine. It's like I think especially guys who don't pray or have never fasted before. It's like it's work up into a discipline. And we offer that kind of teaching in the app too for guys as they're preparing for the experience. So we see different things, but at least I think I kind of like I do agree. I mean, at least in my own life, it's like those things that I commit to, I get the most out of. I just do. I think we'd all probably admit to that. And I think Exodus 90 is very like that. It's like what you put into it, you reap 100-fold. And and it's not to say it's like if you're not all in, you're not in, but it's just something we've observed through the years. So but yeah, on the cold showers thing, I had a breakthrough actually. Last year, this was a Father Boniface thing he taught me. But obviously, there's all kinds of research on like the health benefits and circulation benefits of cold showers, and that's all fine. But one of the things, but we do. So I do ask all the staff. We take cold showers every day. It's just part of the commitments that we make. We make a couple to just stay in touch with the spirit of the work and offering sacrifice for the men that of Exodus all around the world. But Father Boniface is like, honestly, man, cold showers are the most important part of my day. This was before an Exodus 90 thing for him too. And he's like, the dopamine rush to the brain when you really embrace them is unparalleled. And I did a bit of a dive on this afterwards, but then just tried to do this as well as like before that for years. I was just like, all right, I just got to get this over. This is a sacrifice. I'll offer it up. But if you can really enter into a cold shower, and certainly cold plunges would be like perfections of this, it actually it can be it can feel great, honestly. And I don't know how to say that, but it's like it's kind of like when you shrink back, they kind of suck, but when you embrace them, they actually feel great. And the rushes to the brain are pretty incredible. Great resets, a wonderful way to wake up. Truly does wake you up.
Yeah, it
yeah.
does.
Is what it is. I will say though, I feel for those guys in like Minnesota and Canada and cold parts of the earth.
Yeah, bro. We
Yeah.
went to Boston last
Yeah.
year during Exodus. Maybe it was 2
Yeah.
years ago. I don't know. I can't keep track of time of when
Yeah.
things were. But it was like, man, there's like more grace in
Yeah,
the
there
water.
must be.
There's like
Yeah, and it's like, man,
legit.
when it's the guys in Florida that are like talking to me about it, I'm like, hey man, like I've been to Florida. Cold showers feel
Yeah.
or I don't want to hear it. I really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. It's like, look, I take cold showers in the summer too, and they feel great.
Yeah.
Okay. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Hey,
But-
so Jamie, let me do this because I want to pivot to fatherhood for just a second.
Yeah.
Because you have 3. You have it also. How old is your youngest?
Yeah,
I
and
can't
our
remember.
William is
William is
10 months now. Gosh, that's
Okay.
crazy. Yeah,
Almost gonna be a year.
pushing a year.
That's a fun age.
I want to Haley and I were talking about this the other day about because we're really trying to have an intentional year as a family, and so we've been putting together like here's what we want to accomplish as a family this year, and so this kind of has broached a topic that you have to decide like, okay, what are the things that we're going to do for sure, and what are the things they're like just non-negotiables. We're just not going to do these. We're not entertaining these things. And so I'm curious, like, have you guys had have you and Colleen had an opportunity to where you kind of thought about like, okay, here are things as a father, as a husband, like we're not going to do. We're going to say no to this so that we can say yes to something else. Because we say this all the time at Exodus, right? We can do anything we want. We can't do everything, right? And so like, there has to be guardrails, and I think as dads, as husbands, we kind of are the one who has to help with that, like put those guardrails up for our family to stay focused. So I'm curious, like, and I think Dave, you and I were talking about this a little bit a week ago or so. Like, I'm curious if you guys have any things that you guys have said like non-negotiable. We're not going to do this.
Man.
Let me throw a couple things out there for like
Was that
I
question
totally
to me or to
well to either one of you guys, but I threw this on you kind of ad hoc. So let me
it's a great question. I'd love to hear what your answer is first, Adam.
So like I've been writing down like here's some things that I want to make sure we do, and so like obviously I want to make sure I carve out time to have date nights with my wife. In fact, the other night I told my wife, it's like I added on her calendar because we have a shared calendar. That's how we can keep track of everything. I added a date night coming up on February 1st. It's like we're going to the symphony, and she's like, "What? We're going to the symphony?" It's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go on a date night." She's like, "Well, what's the occasion?" It's like, we're just gonna go have a date night together. And so like it kind of, she's like, "Oh, okay, that's awesome." So like I wanted to make sure throughout the year I carve out time to have a date night, right? And so then I that also trickles down. It's like, what do we want to do as a family? And this is something that I picked up actually from Dave. Not to get his whole pride going and whatnot, but Dave does a fantastic job of on Sundays after Holy Mass to go and walk his property with the family. And so they just walk around the property. They see what's changed, what's blooming, what's died, what's different about this day that this week that it wasn't last week. Oh, the flowers are blooming here. The grass is greener over here. This tree's leaves are falling. All the different things as time is changing. You just kind of observe what your land is doing. And so I was like, okay, that's something that is just beautiful. I love that. So we're picking that up. Another thing that we decided to do is we said like, okay, we're not going on Sundays to go to dinner or like brunch, I should say, at a restaurant. We're not doing that. We're not doing that, not because it's not good, but like we want to spend time together, but we also don't want to take time away from those people who have to work on Sundays. Like if everybody said no to doing things on Sunday, then everybody could be together as a family. And so we said like, okay, we're not going to go to a restaurant at brunch, and instead we'll come home. and I got this actually from Clear Creek after one of our like silent retreats that Dave and I do at Clear Creek. But after Mass, we come home and I bless the house with holy water, and we say prayers, and I bless the kids, and then we're gonna go, walk around the property. So like, we're not gonna say yes to going to brunch, which is fun and like everybody loves it. It's kind of a treat and something enjoyable. We're not gonna do that so that we can do this. And so like, I'm really trying this year to say, what can I say no to? So that I can say yes to something greater. Dave, what do you have?
Yeah. I'm also focusing on no's this year because I've just kind of like the season of life we've been in, moving, like having land. There were a lot of opportunities to say yes. And we kind of said yes to a lot of stuff and, tried to think about those things. And we did things fairly well. But just as
the people who have listened to the Catholic Man Show know that the cows came with like some rocky times.
Look, there was growth and there were reasons for growth. Okay. But I'm also just focused, there's just some stuff going on in my like work life and family life that I'm definitely focusing on no, but like you said, I really, really value some of the things that we do as a family that have just been overwhelmingly beautiful. I've talked about this, and I've talked about this many, many times before. We have Lady Pamela and I mean this just honestly, we have done a good job of cultivating a culture of prayer in our family. We have room for doing it better, but we certainly have a culture of prayer. One of the things that we do that's really important is we observe what we call the Great Silence every morning. So the kids know about it. It's every morning. We have silence and try to have the lights mostly off until 8:00. At which point, someone says the mantra, "Oh Lord, open my lips," with the response, "And my mouth shall proclaim thy praise." And so we do that so that everybody in the morning has an opportunity for this quiet prayer. A lot of it began in that I was trying to pray and the kids were loud, and it's like, hey, it's like, God, kids, shut up. I'm trying to pray, but that has just been it's been so beautiful. It's hard to, if I could make a recommendation for families to do one thing, it would be the Great Silence in the morning, because even for our 3-year-old and our 2-year-old and 4-year-old, who don't really know how to pray, they know these prayers that they've memorized, but they don't really know what praying is. But they learn that they're learning the natural virtue of silence, right? So that they will be disposed. So when the Lord does have that moment where he does reach out and call them for that first time, my hope is that they will be more naturally disposed to hear it and to have some of those natural virtues, just to be ready to sit with him in that moment. And that's something I pray about a lot too, for my children, especially as I feel like they might be getting to that age, for just asking the Lord to have that moment with them where he comes to them by themselves, right? Where they have some moment of quiet where all of a sudden they have this encounter where for the first time in your life, you meet Christ, like that you realize that prayer is like a real thing that you can do, and that it just have your mind blown and your horizons opened. And, like C.S. Lewis again, that mantra of like further up and further in. So having the Great Silence, I think, is a big part of
for
that.
clarity, the Great Silence is they wake up in the morning. Can you tell them actually what it is, like practically?
Yeah, it's just so our kids tend to wake up at 7, and so we have an hour of silence. So there's just no talking, except unless you have to say something. And they need reminders. The little ones need reminders. But
And they pray, and they also do chores, right?
yeah, so what I do is that if you are 7, then you need to have 7 minutes of quiet prayer. If you're 10, you will have 10 minutes. And they say, and if like they don't complain about it, because first of all, they saw me doing it for a long time before I asked them to do it. So when I did actually ask the kids who were confirmed and receiving their first communion, that was the moment I said, all right, hey, now you've been confirmed. I'm now expecting you to pray every day. They kind of took it as like, oh, a rite of passage, I'm getting big, like, dad. So, but if they ever do complain, I tell them, look, I'm asking you to pray for 7 minutes. I pray for an hour. Okay. So, this is not an unreasonable thing. And it's part of your duty, your daily responsibility of piety and religion towards our Lord. So, yeah, they wake up, they pray, and then they do their chores. And so all of that should take place in silence as a, and that's very intentional, so that even their work, I even want them to associate their daily chores, these tasks, those kind of get wrapped into this environment of silence, and it's all part of this kind of prayer. It's like, even unloading the dishwasher, or cleaning a bathroom.
Concentration leads to contemplation.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something that we, obviously that's a big part of our family life, and we're going to hang on to that. But I want to get better at our family rosary. That's something that, as I'm talking about how great we're doing it, having this culture of prayer, sometimes the rosary literally takes a back seat. And I mean that we end up doing it in the car, like, oh, if we're driving somewhere, let's pray a rosary. But we're not as good at gathering to pray the family rosary if we're just hanging out at home. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we're not either. Or it ends up being like, hey, let's play a quick decade together. It almost seems like, let's just try to get it. Let's try to do it, like squeeze it in. It's not intentional. Yeah, I agree, Dave. That's something we got to get better at.
Honestly, it's so inspiring listening to, both your kind of family cultures of prayer. And I know a little bit from Adam over the year, but your kids, Adam, they wake and have kind of silent prayer time as well, right? You know, kind of according to their age. Yeah. That's cool. So my, the great silence, I love that idea. Like growing up, my dad modeled that for me, and it like seared in my imagination that's, really how a man starts the day, before the Lord. And I just remember coming down the stairs and, seeing him just so obviously talking, with the invisible and in touch with the invisible. And even before the faith really took in me, or that I was cognizant of it, that example was set for me after his conversion, and it was just hugely important for my life. So I love that. I love that idea. And maybe when the kids are a little older, we'll try something here. I know I would much prefer that. But Adam, to the question about the nose, I honestly, I need to reflect more on that. I'm sure there's things in our lifestyle that, we could adjust a bit, but I think just in terms of like customs that have been helpful to us, we have this statue of the Sacred Heart at the front of our house. And when the kids come down, we try to make that the first thing, kind of kneel down, pray together, and, kiss the Sacred Heart to start the day. And it's fun. It's like some days I'll forget and the kids will remind me. And, it's cool. It's a nice little custom that's blessed us. And then, toward, at the end of the day, I always, I'll say a prayer, over the kids and bless the kids. And I do have this kind of bad habit where like I was trying to get them to say the Hail Mary, but I couldn't get them to pay attention. So I'd like start to sing it to them in like different voices and sounds. And my son was really into monster trucks. And so like I was starting to put the Hail Mary to like these monster truck intro beats and stuff. It's a slippery slope. You got to be careful. Anyway,
I dig it personally. I think it's awesome.
he loves it. I mean, just sing the Hail Mary, crazy dad. But that's been good. And then the other
Like a
thing,
what would
too,
the fox say Hail Mary version.
Yeah.
yeah, not something. Yeah, we'll adjust that over time. But the other thing I try to do, and it's just to bring intentionality to our little conversations. So I have a 5-year-old, I have a 3-year-old, and a newborn who, yeah, you might not be at the age of reason, but is rational, and like receives so much and is growing so much. So I just try to like engage them as they can and as I remember to, with what they can know. And so with the older kids, especially on like the way to school, be like, he's like, hey, I love you, and I'm really proud of you because of X, or, I'm just, hey, I'm so grateful for you. Right. And it just try to get him to like acknowledge like, yeah, dad, I know that. Yeah. Thanks, dad. And so I don't know. Those are, I guess, if I had to put it in negation, it's like, instead of just driving to school, it's like, or whatever, just trying to find some moments to say meaningful things that I know when others say them to me matter to me a lot. My mom, just the other day, actually, I was home. My mom, it was a hairdresser by craft, growing up. She's the only person who has ever cut my hair. Adam, you must know this by now, but Dave,
I've heard you say this.
Yeah,
I've heard you say this. Yes.
I made a vow to her, until she goes to God, she's the only one. And the other day, she said something to me that was just so powerful, and it was out of nowhere, and just like, oh man, what a gift, from my mom, and it affected me. It's affected my whole week, honestly, and just the weight of our words, especially in family. I mean, just as they can be, sadly used to cut down, they can be used to build up and to affirm. And I don't know. That's something I'm really passionate about, and I can always be better, and I'm striving to be, better, in our family.
This is what I think is so important about dads and like trying to cultivate the domestic church is to just sanctify the ordinary. You're driving to school, you're driving, to ball practice, you're driving together as a family. Sanctify that time. You're playing outside, sanctify that time. Like have fun, like play together, like be present to them. All the things like I feel like that we can kind of get caught up sometimes in feeling like, oh, I got to get creative in trying to teach the faith to my kids in some way, shape, or form. We got to do this craft, or we got to do this prayer. We got to do, you kind of feel almost overwhelmed as a dad sometimes, because sometimes you're not creative. Sometimes, by the time you're done with work, you're kind of mentally exhausted or physically exhausted. You're sometimes drained. And then you come home to little human beings that look up to you and need you and want you and desire you. And I think that we can take a lot of pressure off of ourselves as husbands and as fathers if we just realize, like, hey, the things that we already are doing, let's sanctify those. Sitting down at the dinner table together, let's be intentional. Like, no phones at the dinner table. Let's pray before meals.
Yeah.
Let's have conversations. How was your day? What was your favorite part of the day? Like, let's just share life together.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's part of the family. So, like, I think that a lot of times dads can either be listening to this episode or listen to other podcasts or read other books and kind of get overwhelmed or overburdened with the things that they have to do to teach, quote unquote, the Catholic faith. And
Yeah.
let's just like simplify this a little bit more, and just like whatever you guys are doing as a family, just sanctify that time together.
Yeah. And all that time, right, is consumed by the loving presence of God,
Right.
Like, it's not too mundane for him in his will, apparently, right? And all of it, seen with that vision as an opportunity for time together, and that's elevated, as a Christian family for sure.
Yeah, I think that just the way to think about it is to pursue your own holiness as much as you can. And then just like as you're doing those things, just bring your family with you. Whatever that means. Like, are you going to adoration? Take a kid. You like going to daily mass? Like, bring someone. You've got all these people in your house who have to do everything that you say. Just like take one or something. Just if your own holiness is important to you, then theirs will be important to them someday. And don't be weird about it. Okay. Like, kind of like what you're saying, Adam, about sanctifying the mundane. Like, oh, we're out here playing ball. Like, we should say a prayer as it's like, no, come on, don't do that.
Hey, Adam, what's that story? You have a great story about this. Like the Don Bosco disciple, right? That's a saint. Do you remember? It was like it was something. There was some story. I forget even. Was it Dominic Savelli or something? I forget. I forget his name, so don't quote me on that. But it was basically like, if you were gonna die today, what would you go do?
Oh,
and
Brother Murray.
Oh, okay. Do you know the story?
Well, there was a priest Adam and I met who told this story.
He knows Father Paul Murray.
Yeah, Father Paul Murray.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I think that he was actually quoting
somebody else. And and they basically said like, hey, if the Lord was coming to you today, what would you do?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'd finish this pool game that I'm playing.
Yeah. In the next 10 minutes, what would you do? Finish this game of pool.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love that. I love that approach,
Yes. I mean, I think people first of all, they misunderstand what sacred is, so that if you're playing ball with your kids, you're already making it sacred. As long as if you don't have your phone in your hand. Okay. If you pull your phone out, the sacredness is gone. The sacred means to set apart. Okay. So something like playing ball with your kids is sacred because that's all you're doing. You have set all other things apart just to throw this ball back and forth and to be with that child or these children, whoever it is. You're with them. As soon as your phone comes out of your pocket, the sacredness is over. Okay. Because now you're not setting it apart. Okay. You are like appeasing them, but you're somewhere else. Okay. Because you're not really with them. So, making things sacred is a lot easier than people think it is. Just do things one at a time. This is something I've thought about, and I'm actually convinced I ought to do this, but I just don't because I kind of don't want to. But that like in my life, I should always only do one thing at a time. So what I mean is mowing the lawn and listening to an audiobook. Don't do that. I really feel like I ought to. And like I said, I don't do this. I'm a hypocrite for feeling this way. And maybe someday, maybe I'm like kind of working up to it, like decades in the future. I don't know. But just mowing the things of my daily life ought to be enough for me. That the Lord, if I need to mow the lawn today, then just mow the lawn. Just be mowing the lawn. I don't need to be entertained. Yet the thing is, I don't do this. So it's like, I do think I need to be entertained. Maybe me calling myself out on my own hypocrisy here will help motivate me. But, that's something that I thought about for a while and I would like to do better at.
No, you certainly, at least in my own experience, it's like when I'm focused on the next thing and just all in, it's like, it's just meaningful. I'm recollected. I remember, what it, and I'm present, it's when I've got a couple irons in the fire that I am just so average. Okay. So average. This is true at work. This is true at home. Yeah, I am just the opposite. I actually think, multitasking is a lie in general, but if it's possible for some people, it's certainly not possible for me. So anyway,
I do
yeah,
think it's
I
possible
resonate with
for
that a
some
lot.
people who are like genius. I think there are some people who actually can do it, but I think the rest of us are just kidding ourselves.
But I think there's something to really contemplate here, is that one of the things that St. John Paul II did so well, and he was known for, people talk about it all the time who met him, was that when they approached him and talked to him, they felt like they were the only person in this world that he was talking to. And somebody asked St. John Paul II, like, how is it that you do this? And he said, well, I see the Lord in every person. And so how could I forget the Lord? How could I forget him? And so I can, of course, I see everybody else. And so Dave, you and I have experienced this several times, when we've talked with Bishop Olmsted, for instance. Like,
Yeah, he was
that
that
man,
way.
he was that way. Monsignor James Shea, who was our spiritual guide for Advent through Exodus 90, he is that way. Let me tell you this story. This is a crazy story. So Dave and I met Monsignor Shea. Oh, it had to be 3, 4, 5 years ago. He came to Oklahoma for the Oklahoma Men's Conference, and he was one of the speakers. Now, Dave and I didn't really know who Monsignor Shea was at the time. Like, he was just, to us, he was just a priest that from a different place that is coming in to give a talk. We did not know who he really was. Had not even really heard of University of Mary or anything else. He comes in, he talks to us. He so humbly was talking to Dave and I about leisure and asking us questions about leisure. Oh, you guys know about leisure? And like asking us all these questions. We're like, oh yeah, Joseph Pieper. Have you ever heard of this? I mean, we felt like, we were like enlightening
Let me teach
him.
you about this.
Let me teach you about leisure.
Yeah.
And so we talked to him about leisure. Little did we know, the man is a very holy man. He's an intellectual man. He knew all about everything we said. Nothing we said was eye-opening or anything like that. But we had this conversation. And then this summer, we were at the NEC conference. Exodus 9, we were at the NEC conference. 50,000 plus Catholics, right? Monsignor Shea is the president of University of Mary. He sees hundreds of thousands of men every single year. We're walking down this massive hallway with thousands of people in this hallway. I'm walking one way. He's walking another way. He sees me. We make eye contact. And it's like one of those times where you make eye contact with somebody that you've talked to, but they're much bigger deal than what you are. And so you don't want to be like, hey, you remember me from years ago? He makes eye contact with me and goes, Adam Minahan from Oklahoma. How are you doing? How is your family? Is Haley doing well? And I was absolutely blown away, that he remembered my name, remembered where I lived, remembered my wife's name from like 4 years ago, from talking to him. But it's because he was dedicated to the conversation that we had at that moment and like was just completely present in that moment. And so like there's something about being able to do this and holiness. Like there is a correlation here. I don't know if it's causation, correlation. I'm not positive, but like there's definitely something to be said with men who are able to just attune to one thing and be present in that one thing and holiness.
So this reminds me a lot of a C.S. Lewis quote to take us back to the beginning that I stumbled into again recently, but it's from Mere Christianity. And he's describing kind of like people in whom, the Holy Spirit is very present, saintly people. And he says, they do not draw attention to themselves. You tend to think that you are being kind to them when they are really being kind to you. They love you more than other men do, but they need you less. And I just love that quote. And the other observation that he makes somewhere else is that saints seem to have more time than other people. They're not in a hurry. And I just found that to be so interesting because I think most people today would say they feel really busy, like they don't have enough time. But I definitely know a couple people in my life where I don't know how they are doing everything they're doing. I just don't understand it. and I don't know. Maybe they're among them, right? So, I don't know. I love those qualities in Adam. That's such a good story. I would love to be, that kind of person.
I think that for someone like Monsignor Shea, he very well might have a natural gift that, he's like good with names or something. But I think that we can't, that's not the whole picture, because also I think that holiness brings out the highest version of your virtue, right? So that if you are pursuing holiness, and all of a sudden it's really charity that does this, where it's like, I have come to the realization that the reason I don't remember somebody's name is because I really don't care about them. Like, you're meeting someone, you don't really know who this person is. It's like, oh, they're just hi, yeah, nice. Oh, yeah, names. And it's not that I like want bad things for them. I just really don't care, like, and maybe I should, but someone like Monsignor Shea, Bishop Olmsted, they would be, because of their virtuous practices and the way they live their life, they would care, because this is who the Lord has put them in front of in this moment. And so, like, even if this is the only time they ever meet them, like, well, in this moment I'm going to care about, you know what I mean? And that's just, it's a habit that I need to work on. But the holiness simply makes you better at the things you're good at. It's amazing how that works.
Okay, so Jamie, we've gone probably longer than what you thought we were going to go for this evening.
Let's go. Well, you guys are being powered by whiskey, and all I've got here is some chamomile tea. So let's just say you made the right choice.
Yeah. Well, so Exodus 90 starts January 20th, which is Monday. Maybe give you an opportunity to make a final pitch or a call to the men who are listening today. Why do it? Like, why should you?
Every man's journey is different, and I think we talk as we're preparing, for the Exodus, to really discern in prayer and ask yourself, like, why? Like, why do I need this? Is there a Pharaoh that oppresses me? Is there an idol that I'm just stuck, behind, that's kind of keeping me from being who I could be, and who Christ came to set me free to be. So I don't know. I think the best place to start is, what's the why, and that's not just a goal, and it's not just about being great or something vague, but it's really, where is the place that I could be more free, and who would be blessed by that transformation in my life? I think those are the most essential questions to ask. But I'll just say this: it's been this is the 10th year, and over 250,000 men now, which is just insane. From my side, it's just incredible what the Lord has done with a few loaves and fish. I mean, this started from nothing, and has been so fragile at so many points, and just to see how far it's come has been, just truly amazing. And, my prayer is that, the men who are in need of Exodus and greater freedom will be drawn, and will be found, if not this year, in the future. If it's for you, we welcome you into the brotherhood. I wish I could tell you it's like for this kind of guys, but Exodus guys are full of surprises. I mean, you saw it at the Freedom Summit guys last year, but we see it in our conversations with men all around the world every day. Guys who are really into the faith, guys who are still trying to figure things out. We got lots of guys in the Orthodox churches and other Christian denominations as well, across, states in life, professions. It's really been something. And I don't know. It's just, if it's something you pray through and you feel like this is your year, yeah, we'd love to have you. And it's a big brotherhood, and it's not guys who have it all figured out and have all the answers, or Yeah, but it is guys who really take seriously that, you know, their manhood and the consequence of their life is really something, ripples through generations. And yeah, we're really serious just about the consequence and the importance of men really embracing who they are as sons, and you know, for that identity to reverberate in love. I mean, it can really, I mean, it can change family trees. I mean, it can change generations. Um, Sins can pass down generations. Yeah, so can virtues, you know. And I think we'd all say that. I'd certainly say that, reflecting upon my own father. So um, anyway, it's a little bit about kind of the nature of our work and kind of the identity underneath it. And yeah, it's a welcome. You know, you're open. You know, if this is your year, you know, we're open and welcome to. You know, would love to have you.
If somebody wants to join, what do they do?
Yeah, you know, if you're, you know, interested in exploring, you know, whatever questions you might have, the site's a great place to go. Just exodus90.com. But if you're ready to start a fraternity and invite a few friends, maybe look locally for communities near you, or if you're in a really rural area where there's not a local community, you can also find a remote group forming that can meet at the time you're available. So the app's the best place to go. So just download the Exodus90 app from your app store. You'll be all set. And you know, as much as it can sound like, you know, and maybe the first few days you're kind of getting your bearings. It's like you settle in, you know, eventually, and you know, we try to make it as simple as possible. But you know, it's a commitment, you know, for sure, and something that, yeah, you should discern. And if it's for you, we'd love to have you.
Very good. Well, exodus90.com, download the Exodus90 app. Monday, January 20th is the start date. But if you're listening to this past the start date, it's not too late to join us. Like, it's not something that you have to start only on January 20th. So if you're listening to this past that date, you can always join, and don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Start today and get in touch with a different fraternity, or grab a couple other guys and join us through the rest of it. We also have Exodus90 Lent. And then the beautiful thing is like Jamie said, is we fast so that we can feast. And so right after Exodus90, we have Easter 50, which is like how you feast well together. How do you rejoice and be the Alleluia people that we are as Christian men? So Exodus90 is not just a 90-day program, but a year-long formation for men. So we have Exodus90, Easter 50 goes into the summertime. We have St. Michael's Lent, which starts August 15th. That rolls into a whole host of other things into Advent, and then back to Christmas, and then we're back at Exodus90. So we have a full year's worth of formation for you. So go to exodus90.com and join a fraternity. Dave, we're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus.